Hello again, it's Chris here, and I've got a special friend that I've known for a long time when he lived up in Sandy. His name is Steve Helland, and he has a lot of experience in the career that he has. And so I thought we'd invite him. Right now, he is working at GreenX, which is a business that's based out of Orem, Utah. They're in 15 states and have like 32 offices, so they're big. And Steve is the big man over there.
No, not a big man, but yeah, we have a lot to manage over there at GreenX.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear. So I think Steve told me his title right now is VP of Operations. So I don't know what that looks like to you. What your day looks like
Sure.
as the VP of Operations.
Yeah, so GreenX is a home services company. We do pest control for households and across America. Like you said, we have 32 different physical locations and offices from Pennsylvania clear over to Utah, kind of in the Midwest, Nebraska, Minnesota area. Yeah, I guess when I was a young man, I never thought I'd see myself as working at a pest control company and managing operations for them. But it's been a really neat journey to get there. It's a big company. We have about 1,000 employees, 600 field employees. I've got a team. I've got 6 departments that I oversee. And that's management. So as a vice president, I tend to manage managers, and they each have technical functions for the business. And we make sure that the 200 and 250,000 households around the country get a good pest control service. That we do it responsibly, that we do it respectfully. We do an honest job for them, and that our employees are having a good experience, and so are our customers. So my day to day, you asked, is it's filled with a lot of meetings. It's filled with a lot of asking our employees how they're doing, how it's their experience like, making sure that we can predict what's going to happen in the business. How much product do we need? Are our vehicles working well? How's licensing looking? Is training going well? Just making sure that everyone has a comfortable experience working there, and that our customers get a job well done. So yeah, it's like many businesses, it's calendar management and meeting management, but it's a lot of personnel relationship management as well, and understanding the product and the business that we do. So that takes a lot of different avenues. So happy to talk about any one of those.
That's you've got a lot on your shoulders. So how many people would you say you're kind of managing right now?
Yeah, so the teams that I oversee, I have 5 managers that reports to me, and then kind of their employees that they manage. There's about 20 of us in our group, and then we support. Our typical support is over the field operations. So we'll provide support and services and oversight to the 600 field employees, making sure that. I oversee the training aspects of our company. I oversee the licensing aspect of our company, the product purchasing, our fleet management. So 600 trucks, oil changes and maintenance and upkeep and registration. And then I oversee the product fleet inventory fleet. Oh, and the claims. So anytime something in our business, if there's an issue with, maybe we did some damage at somebody's home, or there's a vehicle incident, I'll oversee any kind of the incidents and claims that happen at our business. And then I
Hmm.
also do a little bit of facility management as well. So
So if there's a fire, Steve's there to put it out.
yeah, if there's a fire, we hope to extinguish it quickly. That's right.
Well, that's very cool. So have you found in your career, maybe in your current position, that there are certain tools for managing or helping to manage people that you seem to use day to day that, you know, I mean, it's tough. When I worked, and I've talked about this in another video, when I worked for the credit union, I had a similar position managing about 22 loan officers and 12 branches in 2 states. And I hadn't really been in that position before, and it was not easy. You've got a lot of different personalities. And if, I was always concerned that I was going to make an enemy that day. But I don't know. Are there certain
Yeah.
things that you've done that seem to help in your
I
career?
mean, I think in terms of tools of what people use to be good at their job, many of them are personal. So how do you stay organized? I mean, some of those tools can be as simple as a journal. I see a lot of employees will just carry a notebook around and they just write down things throughout the day, tasks they need to do. I kind of started there and I moved most of my tools to digital tools. So I've got a personal task management tool that I use. It's called Trello. It's a great little tool. There's a million forms of task management tools. I think just pick one and use it. But everyone who is effective and I think moving at their job is using some kind of task and note
Hmm.
keeping tool. They do it organized and they stick to it. Calendar management. If you are not using your time and you don't know what you're doing through the day, then things are going to happen to you. You're going to be very reactive with your time. So I think just knowing really well, okay, what am I going to do this Friday? If I've got an open afternoon, how am I going to use that time wisely? I mean, that might be a round of golf with some coworkers, or that might be I'm going to double down on a project with with a fellow employee, or maybe it's a report that I've been needing to do for a couple of weeks. But being able to manage that calendar time well, it doesn't all have to be productive time. Again, a lot of business is relationship management. So making sure that you're spending time with your coworkers, when you manage teams, I need to get one-on-one time with my managers and make sure that they are being heard, that I'm following up on projects that we have kicked off and get some of those updates. And those don't need to be meetings and back to back to back to back updates. Sometimes it's tapping them on the shoulder, asking them how they're doing, asking how their employees are doing, asking how they're feeling personally. And making sure some of that time's intentional instead of just, again, letting it come in. So, and another thing I think I've learned, at least in my role of operations and really any business, like if something's not moving, if something's slowing down, and or you're kind of stuck on a particular task or project, there's a problem. I mean, businesses move, money follows movement, whether that's revenue, whether that's spend. Some of that movement's bad, some of that movement's good. But in operations, things need to be moving, and so if there's ever a process that's broken or a team that is idle, something's wrong. So we need to go make sure that there's just constant movement. So I think tools for me is just making sure there's good energy amongst the groups, that there's good morale amongst the groups, that they seem productive and involved. And then obviously just kind of the tactical tools that I use just for some task management, note keeping, calendar, making sure you have good organization in your email. But yeah, in terms of a tool set, I really think it's a lot of that's just personal. Now,
Hmm.
tools and skills that I think every person who's going to live or work in corporate America, or even in blue collar America. I mean, software is such a big piece of our lives now. I can't think of a company that's still doing it on pieces of paper. I mean, everything's gone digital. So of course, knowing Google Suite or Microsoft Suite of tools, people used to post that on their resumes. And I think now that if you don't know how to use a doc or a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet, I mean, you've missed the mark. I mean, you've got to start learning how to use some digital software tools. So good email management, obviously any kind of word processing, whether it's Google Sheets or excuse me, Google Docs or Microsoft Docs or whatever it's called. Excuse me, Microsoft Word. Obviously, knowing those tools is good, but then many businesses will have proprietary tools. So, hey, this is our internal CRM system that we use. How do we manage those relationships? Who's our customers and how much money are they paying us, and how much time is being spent on certain projects. So, there's lots of proprietary tools that come with the business, and I don't think that people are expected to know those when they get in. I think it's really being able just to learn how to learn software. Cool. I mean, how do navigation menus work? How do permissions work? How do notifications work? Is there a mobile version of this thing? What's my level of permissions within the system that I'm responsible for, that I need to act within? I mean, my first job was a ticketing system in Salesforce, and I just needed to learn that thing inside and out. Cool. How can I run reports on this? How can I see how many tickets are signed to me? How can I filter a view for things that have been in my queue for longer than 6 hours or 2 days or 2 weeks? So being familiar with any kind of the company tools is, I mean, it's a must. And I don't care if it's a small business or a big business. We've got to stay, on top of our digital software, our digital tools. And I think that's going to come with almost any career. So don't be shy. Spend a little time on the computer. Learn the gimmies, which is your word processing and PowerPoint and or your presentation and your table tools. But then also just be prepared that you're going to be learning some software and show an aptitude to do that.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful, Steve. I think, I've looked back, what would I do differently if I was in high school? And I think it's very helpful. If you know the Microsoft stuff, your PowerPoint, your Excel, a lot of businesses just use the basics, just even a
Yeah.
basic Excel worksheet. So that's very helpful, to kind of look into that as you're in high school and learn those things. But
Yeah.
let's say, for example, let's kind of switch to personnel issues. Usually, if you're getting involved, there's a problem. So let's say if someone comes to your office and they sit down and they talk about some grievance they have with somebody,
Sure.
are there certain you know, tactics or certain things you use to kind of, instead of escalate a situation, maybe use to de-escalate or try to manage or to help resolve a situation?
Yeah. I guess in terms of that context of how do I diffuse or put out fires and from a morale or a personnel issue, I mean the first thing to do is just acknowledge and listen to the person. I think lots of times something will come to my desk and it's not a big deal at all from my perspective, right? And just kind of dismissing any concern or anything brought up, and really in any relationship, if somebody brings something to you and you kind of just put it off, it's not important. Well, it's important to them. I mean, they made the effort to come to you and want to talk to you about it, so they've obviously made some level of effort to try and express some concern. And so I think, and then if it is a big concern and you've been dismissive in the past, then you are going to miss the big ones. People are going to be
Hmm.
kind of hesitant and not want to talk to you about problems or personal issues they're facing, or let alone critical business issues that they're finding. So always being, I think, approachable and acknowledge, hear them out, ask follow up, just good old fashioned communication skills, ask clarifying questions, make good eye contact, use body language, intonation and pace, and just good kind of listening and intercommunication skills is going to help you uncover. I've found a lot of good things. Sometimes if the concern can turn into an opportunity. Hey, Steve, I don't think this is going very well, and we could be doing something better. Well, what I've learned, as you kind of get away from the technical part of the business or kind of the front lines of the business, you start becoming a bit disconnected. So some of the best innovation will come from those
Hmm.
folks that are closest to the function. So man, if you're not listening to people or giving them a chance to talk, good luck getting innovation from them or positivity. So yeah. So, but in terms of just tactical practices, if somebody's having a hard time with a coworker, again, you hear them out, you see if they're see if there's some immediate, just some common sense advice you could give them, like maybe give them a little space, or maybe it was a bad day, and see if this is going to be a chronic and ongoing issue, or is this just kind of like a temporary single time issue that's happening. And then I mean, I don't know if there's a playbook for any one of them. You just got to use you know just hear them out, see if the situation needs your involvement or not, give them a couple pieces of practical advice. One thing that I have learned is I heard this once a couple years ago about the astronauts who work for NASA and go up into outer space. I mean, these guys are the cream of the crop. These are guys who are physically fit, who are extremely smart, high accomplished, high performers in school, high performers in their career. I mean, these guys are like the top notch of employees, right? If you could hire an astronaut, there's only like one or two or four or five in the nation that even qualify for that job. But one of the biggest requirements that they consider for somebody who they're going to put in a shuttle up into space and do these $1 billion spend experiments, or projects, they have to be likable. They say, how likable is this person? And so one thing that I try to do is, because we're tribal animals, right? We work in communities. We are pack animals. We work with other humans. And so having an ability to talk to other person and work out an issue, if that always has to go through me, or always has to just go through it like a
Hmm.
transaction through me, like that, we're not going to get anywhere. So teaching them skills for, okay, cool. You're having a problem with an individual. Can we bring them into the room and talk to them about it? Have you talked to them about it? Have you addressed it have you brought it up? And I have found that more than half the time they haven't. They kind of want somebody else to fix the problem for them. But if you're going to challenge your employee or somebody who's coming with that problem to start having the tough conversations themselves, they're going to start building these skills of, oh man, maybe I just need to confront the problem. Maybe I need to tell them that this is something that, is hard for me, or I don't like the way that they, send their tone in their emails, or how they dump projects on my lap. And I need to go talk to them about it. And so, and kind of empowering them with the same skills that I'm using is God, then it really reduces a lot of these issues that come up in the first place. Now, and then other times there's obviously something that needs, if it's an issue that needs real attention, I'll hear them out. I might even document it for any kind of HR perspective, or some notes to make sure I remember details. I'll either call in the other party or find out what the problem is. And once in a while, you have to get into those details. But I've found that those are pretty few and far between. People generally want to work well. Major problems are not coming up every day. They tend to be kind of interpersonal disputes, and people just kind of need the tools to work through them. So, it's just kind of coaching people how to, be nice, be likable.
Yeah, well, that's very helpful. I think you brought up so many good points. I think if you're in a management position and removed a step or two from the front lines, you're not listening to people and their suggestions. then you're missing out on opportunities.
Yeah.
Like say business, and especially if you're in charge of operations, the key, probably one of your goals, I don't know, but is to like optimize and make everything efficient and run
Yeah.
smoother. And so if you're not listening, then that's a huge resource you're not getting. So
Yeah,
no,
I've
I
come
think
up
there's
with,
a,
like, maybe 2 good ideas. Most of the good idea we've done a lot of work in our teams. We've made decisions that have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars over the next couple of years, as we play them out, and most of those have come from employees who care about it, who are closest to the
yeah,
function, and just listening and kind of catching on to those good ideas, and then supporting them and working out through the details on those. Yeah, it's lots of good ideas. Most good ideas come from people closest to the function. That's a big lesson I've learned.
yeah. I think you build some loyalty in your employees by instituting some of those changes they recommend. I think that's very wise, Steve. And I was kind of thrown into the fire when first got put into a management position, and I learned really quickly that a lot of times it's just listening to their concern, and a lot of times it diffuses itself almost.
Yeah.
They just want to feel like someone's there to listen, to kind of mediate if you need to. Um, and it's funny because I managed um, well, probably shouldn't say that.
That's all right.
There was some challenges. I have to hit
Yeah.
the filter button occasionally, but
Well, and I think that's a good lesson, Chris. Is I mean, some of those things are personal, and we all have a tendency to kind of once you have maybe something juicy or something you shouldn't. Um, I've seen in many work environments like the water cooler talk, right? Oh, did you hear this about so and so? Did you know this was going on? Respecting the privacy of others and keeping some of those things just professional is going to keep you out of a lot of trouble. And it's just good common decency, respecting your coworkers and any of that sensitive information. That filter that you just exercise is, you have to do that in leadership. And the earlier you can start exercising that, the more respect you will get from your coworkers and certainly from
hmm
leadership. I mean,
hmm
I was a gal was asking me, yeah, probably a year and a half ago about, Steve, I really want to get into management. What are some changes you think I got to make? And I said, look, if you want to manage, you need to lead the people you're with. And I knew her personality. I knew some of the things going on. And I said, you're kind of rolling around in the field. It's kind of this gritty. These are guys, they're out in the sun each day. It's kind of a gritty a personality type. Guys are doing pest control each day. And she wanted kind of, to rise above and get into management and leadership. And I said, look, that should already be happening. If you feel like you need to ask help or do that, then you got to change some behavior is the first thing. And she's kind of rolling around in the gossip and kind of the
hmm
behavior of her peers. And that's fine. That's fine to get along with that. But if you have aspirations, or if you want to go and try and lead people around you, you've got to be the adult in the room. That's another phrase I despised when I was a kid, but I like now is like, when the more you manage in a business, the higher your position is in a business, the more consequential your decisions will be, and the harder the problems or the questions become. And so you've got to get to a position where you need to be the adult in the room. Cool. I'm not gonna, everyone kind of looks to that person as who has the answer here and who knows what they're actually talking about. And if you've kind of already started thinking that way and kind of taken things on a perspective that touches many aspects of the business, or you've kind of looked at it from an angle outside of just the peer cohort, you're going to have some of those answers. You're already going to know what some of those answers are. So some of it is behaving differently, and some of it is respecting the relationship with your peers and being professional about that. And I think if you behave that way, you'll already start being recognized as a leader amongst your peers and respected, and they'll offer that same respect to you. And with that, I would also be cautious about some of the information you share at work. I mean, it's a lot of the things we discuss. We kind of hope that our coworkers will treat with some respect, or they're going to have answers. And some of those things are just personal, and you ought to keep in your personal life. So knowing kind of that boundary, but certainly respecting others people's boundaries is, man, that's how we ought to be treating each other. So
So whoever's watching this should probably replay that. That was very, very good. I mean, there are a ton of people out there that want to know, how do I get promoted at work? What are some things I need to do? And I think there's some great pearls that Steve just shared with us. Um, I remember working, up in Salt Lake and being a VP of lending, and the biggest thing is that I saw, we had one of the guys that was really upset. He hadn't been promoted for like 10 years. He had been in the same position and he was really frustrated. But it's almost like he didn't see what he was doing. He would do, talk like management would come out with this guideline, and then he would go around the office talking about what a terrible decision that was, and kind of talking trash.
Yeah.
And so he was causing more problems than he was solving. So yeah, you have to act like a leader. And if someone comes out, if management comes out with a decision you don't like, it's not your job to go and try to badmouth other
Right.
leaders in the company. It's your job, confidentially, probably, to go to your boss and say, "Hey, I've got concerns with this decision, and have you thought about doing it this way?"
Yeah.
Um, and,
That's good
and
advice.
you're going to take yourself off the list for any promotion if you're two-faced.
Yeah.
People want to trust you. If you go to the office and you build relationships with people, and then you're on vacation for a week, if you're worried about what people are saying about you at work, there's a problem at work.
Yeah.
You should feel comfortable that everyone's, hopefully not clawing their way at the top and climbing over you. That's not a good environment.
Chris, I think, I mean, this day and age too, with there's so many tools to find jobs for people to recruit you. I mean, I think it's an older mentality to think of like beating out your buddy to get to the management position. If you just behave and mature and grow naturally, it could be reading books, it could be soaking in everything from your immediate supervisor. Maybe it's just some time of you maturing and kind of get understanding the workforce environment over time. I mean, one management position, it might be like right in front of you, but Chris, there's tens of thousands of leadership positions around this country. Lots of those are even remote now, and multi branch and multi branch companies. So even if you don't get the leadership role where you're at and you're worried about your reputation there, I mean, again, it's just development. Develop yourself, and that leadership opportunity will come. I don't think it's you wait around for your manager to go move out or the guy next door at the office. It's just make yourself a leader. People will find you. I mean, you'll start sharing your thoughts on LinkedIn, and make the people that worked with you will say, "Oh, I know a guy." In fact, almost every one of my jobs, Chris, has been somebody reaching out to me saying, "Hey, I know a guy who's real positive. He's nice to work with, and he's halfway smart." And I've been recruited for every single one of my jobs. I have been recruited, and every one of my promotions, I've been recruited. I don't know if I've ever even applied for a leadership position. I'm not patting myself on the back. What I'm saying is that I could spend time learning and just being curious in every role that I'm in. And if you just kind of soak it up and build, it's just going to be natural leadership that people see in you, and you'll be rewarded with that. So I don't even think
Mhm.
it's competing for it anymore, worrying about what people are trying to do to take it away from you. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
As I knew you and I were going to discuss this, I kind of been thinking like, God, what really happened for my path to get here? And I want to make sure I get these two things out. If I could, leave this on the eternal internet, this is what I would say: is one, a general sense of positivity and optimism will get you so far. I think we can make that work. I'm going to get, this relationship's going to be a great relationship. If someone dumps a project on your lap and you got to do, I think I can get that done on time. And I think that I can sell that customer. I think I could be in Puerto Rico tomorrow and change my flight plans, and just kind of having a general sense of, I think I can do this thing, and being I mean, optimistic and just kind of positive. Man, that goes a long way. And you'd be surprised how much you could take on and how much people want to give you, if you have a general sense of positivity and take it onmanship. I don't know how else to say that.
Mhm.
And most of the projects that come your way, you end up being able to take them. And as you do those, and people know that you're reliable, again, you're rewarded for that. I don't work as a hobby. I don't work to spend my days. I would much rather spend my days on a river fly fishing, or rock climbing somewhere, or doing something. But I've got to spend some time working. Got to make some money, and so it's important to me to make sure that if I'm going to spend time away from my family and doing discretional things I like, then I'm going to use that time well, and I'm going to be rewarded for that. And work is to generate income, to generate revenue, and to provide for yourself and your family, and especially for my family. So if I'm wasting time at work, then I'm letting my kids down. I'm letting my wife down. And so it is important to me to know how to navigate the work environment. And I'm telling you, having a general sense of positivity will get you really, really far. The second thing is be curious. I know I've used that word before, and it's kind of trendy right now. I remember one of my positions, someone asked how to put a CSS sheet on top of the website. I said, "Ah, what is CSS?" And I Googled it and I started reading, oh, it's a cascading styling stream. What does this do? Oh, this is what makes websites appear a certain way. And I'm like, well, how do you do that? And I said, well, I think I can do that for this customer. So I was doing like a custom styling, a custom CSS sheet for their account. And I was able to develop it. And I was not a developer. I was not a programmer. In fact, I hated most of that crap in high school and college and for the required courses they had us do. But I was just, I was like, how does this work? How does the world work around me? And if you entertain that a little bit, you're going to make yourself more, at least understanding of what other people's jobs are. And you're going to make yourself more valuable because you understand business more. If you want to know what a P&L is, if you want to know what a forecast or a budget or a balance sheet are, just let me understand the finances of business. That's the universal language in business. You better start understanding those. How do you run certain formulas in Excel? What is a query? And how do I run queries in Excel? And if you just kind of entertain that and just kind of soak it all in, education did not stop in college. In fact, college was just like for me anyway. And I know this is not said for all professions, but for general business application, which is what I have done in my career. I've never been very specialized and technical, but I make fine money and I've done well in my career. Having that general kind of gaining more skills, being curious, and making yourself understand the business world around you more has made me more valuable and appreciate other people's work and talk their work language. And that's helped me succeed in work. And I've built a couple of websites for some guys on the side and done some trade work, and those things have come in handy anyway. So be curious, be positive, and that will be rewarded in the workplace.
Mhm. That's true. I think it's hard for some of these guys and gals coming out of high school. They think, I should be paid X amount, but really your skills determine, how much you get paid, and build your skills. Focus on,
Yeah,
your values. Present your value to a company, and the money comes after. You
yeah,
can't
and keep
have the
learning.
cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And so that's very good, because being positive too, being curious, being positive. I think a lot of people, if a boss came to them, and I saw this a lot when I was managing people, I would give someone a project and they would say something like, why is this important? Or
Yeah.
why are you asking me to do this? And so it's kind of like almost a bad attitude. But if you have an attitude like Steve, like, yeah, hey, this is a project we've got, and here's why we want to do it, and here's your part in it. Yeah, I think this is great. Great idea.
Yeah.
Let me run with it. That's unusual. It's sad to say, but I think in business, that kind of attitude's unusual. So,
Yeah, Gal, one of like the promotions I think that I just am grateful for is there was a particular gal I worked with in one of my companies. She was a difficult personality. She liked to avoid work and just find somebody who would pick up the slack. And I was, first couple of years of my career, I was very excitable and willing to do, I had this kind of personality. So I did a lot of grunt work for her, and it was not I like in hindsight, I'm like, that was not my job. I should never been doing that. It was it was her work. But I didn't taint the relationship, and it wasn't negative. And anyway, well, she got a job at a very nice company, and they were hiring. They were growing very quickly, and they said, "Hey, do you know anybody else who could come and work in this department with us?" And guess who the first guy was she called? And so
yeah.
maybe those projects didn't directly benefit me then, but just again that that likability or just being willing to help out and be positive led into
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest moves in my first real material moves in my career was that phone call saying, "Hey, we're looking for folks like you. Can you come join us?" I got the job immediately. I worked with
Hmm.
her for a little bit, and that was a big step into kind of my more senior-ish role in my career. And since then it's been pretty good for me. So
Yeah.
being likable or just working a little hard on a project may not benefit you immediately, but you never know. If you work with probably 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, someone's going to notice your work. And again, you'll be rewarded for that now or at a later opportunity or through a recommendation. So those two principles I just know will work. They just work. Be positive,
Yeah.
be curious, keep learning, and your
Hmm.
career you'll be rewarded in your career. You'll make more money. Simple as that.
So delete from your vocabulary. That's not my job.
Yeah, seriously. It
I
is your
mean,
job. They're paying you. They get to tell you what to do. It's your job.
that's right. Yeah, it was interesting. I was reading an article on Yahoo Finance. He was talking about the current CEO of Walmart, and I forget his name right now, but one of the youngest CEOs they've ever had. He started in their warehouse unloading trucks for 6.50 an hour,
No.
and his advice was whenever my boss went on vacation and he was like asking for help, I was the first one to raise my hand, said, "What can I do?" He was learning the jobs of his superiors, before the opening.
Yeah.
So when it came around to promotions, this guy was already doing the job. Well, let's promote this guy. He already knows what I do. So
Yeah.
it's
And as I've seen kind of more senior leadership with a lot of people, generally when there's a time for a promotion or there's an opening, you kind of know who's ready for it. And, you might get surprised from an interview or two, but typically, who's kind of developed and getting ready for that. So yeah,
yeah,
use your time wisely at work. It is, especially in the early times of your career, it'll create good habits for you and good energy for you. And the faster you can make those progressions in your career earlier, the longer you get to enjoy higher pay, leadership
yeah,
opportunities, and more opportunities and whatever. So learn those lessons quick. Do it quick.
yeah.
Set that pattern up for yourself quickly.
Exactly. So it's not about who your boss is. It's not about if your coworkers like you. It's not about someone's being mean to me at work. Just take on the added responsibilities. Pick up if someone's slacking, pick up the work. Do it. It always comes back to you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've got a 16-year-old son, and sometimes he'd come home from Little Caesars, and he would say, "So and so is being a butt, being rude."
Yeah.
And someone's being this and so but I said, hey, just work hard, learn that business inside and out, and you'll progress. And you could, who knows, you could buy your own franchise one day and you know
Yeah.
exactly how to run the thing because you've
Yep.
done from bottom to top. So but
It just makes you more interesting. You know more things about business. You know some things about pizza. You know some things, the cost of cheese and how it goes up and down. So if you're curious and you listen, I think you're more interesting as a person too. If all
yeah,
you know how to do is your career and that one little thing in your career, like you get kind of stagnant and you get a little boring. So just yeah, listen and
good good
listen to the world around you, and good things
good
happen.
good advice. So with what you're doing, we'll kind of wrap this up. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but this we could talk all night, Steve.
Sure. You told me it's gonna be 3 hours, so
Well, we'll give you a break. But as far as what you're doing right now, are there certain things that you do that you find joy, happiness, fulfillment in, that you like to focus on, and maybe other things that are harder?
yeah. Um, a couple of things I've thought about on that front of like, how am I happy doing what I each day, and am I doing meaningful things or things that bring me joy? And those things have to be extend outside of business, right? I mean, business is a place where we spend our 9 to 5 or 40 hours a week, whatever it is, our night shifts, whatever people are working on. And I think you have to just treat business like you do life. If you don't like what you're doing, change something. I mean, one thing that I think is that I learned early on is I wanted to have something called uh, I can't say it on this interview, but it's a card that says like the "I don't need you anymore" card. And one position you ought to be in, and I'll answer the question more specifically. But if you don't like, the people you're spending with, or you don't believe in the work you're working on, like you need to change that. You need to know, like, believe in what you're doing, like the people around you. And if you're being abused and you don't like, your workspace, you don't have to work there. Indentured servitude ended long ago. And there's lots of ways to go find a new job. So one thing is to be able to have the ability to leave work. If you don't have 6 to 9 months of your bills saved away and tucked away in your bank account, then
Mhm.
and you're working paycheck to paycheck, well, guess what? That abusive manager or that really tricky relationship with a coworker that you just can't get past and you have to be there is going to become very distressing to you. And that's going to wear you down, and you're not going to like what you do. And then it starts trickling in your personal life and how you sleep at night. And so you've got to be in a position where you have autonomy. I can leave this job if I need to because I can get another one. And what I have found, Chris, that is if I behave in a way where I can change those things around me, or I can tell a boss that I don't like, you know, a way that we're doing a certain thing, or I don't like a way that some decisions that the business is making. It's made me more valuable because I'm a critical thinker. Now I'm not just okay, sure, I'm going to do it, and you just kind of go with the flow. You start pushing back a little bit. Are you having you have more critical conversations, and that's typically praise. Like, oh wow, Steve's not just thinking about getting this one thing done. He's thinking about a bigger picture, or there's some discontent in a team or a project we're working on, and Steve is taking action to change that. And I'm not worried about my job to do that. So I've kind of put myself in a position am I happy? Do I have joy? I get to like where I work because I choose where I work. I don't letting work choose me, and let my paycheck choose what I'm doing this week. And I have to make a certain amount of money to live. I could make much less money and be where I'm at, and that allows me to take riskier opportunities with businesses or behave in a certain way with my management. And again, that's typically met with a positive response. Um, but to the core of what joy is it's the old Harvard study, the study on happiness, and it is we get very bored and tired of transactions, right? You go buy something, you bring it home, it has a shelf. You bought your new video game system or your new workout machine or your this trip to the Bahamas, and it's fun very temporarily, but Jordan Peterson said it too. He said, life isn't about margaritas on a beach in the Bahamas. It's about how your wife greets you when you get home. It's about the way your kids look at you across the dinner table. It's about the people around you and how they like and respect you. So joy, Chris, is long lasting and intimate relationships. It's people that you care about, and people around you that you like being around, and you affecting them in a positive way and making those relationships, not transactions. It's not a meeting
Mhm.
that ends after 30 minutes. It's getting to know that person. It's being interested in them as a person, surrounding yourself with other people who buoy you up and don't treat you like a transaction, but treat you like a person. Years in my relationship, I mean, we had a nice time where we got to work together for 2 to 3 years. But we got to know each other personally and have a real relationship, not just getting a couple projects done and moving on in life. And that makes me happy. It makes me happy to see you again and joke around about some of the old times or some acquaintances we know. And that is happiness. You can't buy old friends. You can always go buy a new wardrobe or buy even a new house or that fancy trip, but you can't buy an old friend. And those have become, to me, more and more meaningful. So hanging on to the ones that are good for me is bringing me joy. And I would say many of those relationships have come from the workplace. And again, it's where I spend my time. I've gotten to meet thousands of people through the workplace, and making sure those become relationships and are real and meaningful for the ones that you choose. That brings happiness.
Mhm.
The stress comes from stuff that you haven't managed well and that you aren't making changes about. So yeah, I mean, and then obviously that comes to its very, very core is a good relationship with my family, in the church that I'm involved with, and making sure that I'm feeling, I'm doing meaningful work there. And if I'm having a good day with my kids every night, last night I was teaching my daughter how to throw a softball and catch a softball after her first softball game win, and I think that's going to go a long way. So yeah, you got to make sure
Yeah.
that's a big part of your life.
Yeah, I think that's wise. So a couple things, I guess, you need to put yourself in a position where if you're in a bad job, the first thing you should be doing is putting money aside, 6 months of money so that you've got options. If a job turns sour, you've got a few months set aside of bills that you can, if you had to. I would never recommend quitting a job before you had a job, but if you had to, you've got some time to find a new
And
job.
yeah, money's just not an
So
element of that decision. Like, money doesn't have to be the decider. For most
yeah.
Americans, money's that decider. I can't quit this job because I can't get past the next 2 to 4 weeks of my lifestyle, and that's a scary place to live. You feel much more, your options are way less in that scenario. So
Mhm.
I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
Don't quit
Mhm.
a job, know what your prospects are, but yeah, you need to be in a position where you can, the financial, you not being able to eat or live in your house next month is not part of that equation, and you are a way healthier employee if you've done that.
Yeah, right. The other thing I heard you saying is a lot of the joy and happiness you find is from relationships, and it's very interesting because that seems to be a common theme. I've talked to a lot of people that are in the healthcare business, and even some that are just in general business like you, and another guy that was involved with a company in Utah County also, and a lot of the fulfillment that he was talking about comes from seeing at those relationships and seeing people progress, helping, like that. Well, there
Sorry,
you go,
Steve.
Steve. I can see it. So, helping people, basically, just that one thing, helping people. For me, in the financial part of industry, it was helping people meet their financial goals, buy a
Yeah.
home, which is one of the biggest centers of wealth for people. So in the medical industry, there was a lot of people that talked about helping people uh, with medical issues and coming in and paying and leaving, and their life was better. Uh, just helping and improve people's lives. So in management, I think one of the things I've really enjoyed is building those relationships and seeing people succeed.
Yeah.
And the same thing with our families, the same thing with our relationship with God. As we progress and see people in our families grow and progress and become better, I think that's a lot of the joy too. So
Yeah. I think a good balance too. We talk about that balance. If you hear about that three-legged stool, I'm sure many people have heard about this example. But if your whole life is about work, you have unbalance, right? And then your family's going to suffer, and your social life's going to suffer. Your community life's going to suffer. The other leg of that stool is your loved ones, your family, your personal relationships. If that's all you're investing time in, well, guess what? You're probably not be making money, and work's going to suffer, and you got to do that. And of course, I think any kind of community or social involvement, you can add fourth legs to the stool, but really if those three need to be intact, you got to be doing something bigger than yourself, whether it's a
mhm.
it's a religious group that you're part of, or maybe it's a social, maybe it's youth or service to others. And there's a lot of things that you got to have balance on those three things, else you're not going to be healthy in one or more of those other categories. So joy can persist, but you've got to have health too to be able into, you can be as happy as you can be, but if you got a bad diet and you got type 2 diabetes and you can barely move anymore, it doesn't matter how good your relationships are. You got to be healthy too. So there's good just exercise too with all areas of your life to make sure that you're a healthy employee, a healthy father, or husband, wife, child. And then yeah, you got to be have other people around you and take care of them too. So of
Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate all your time tonight, Steve.
course.
These are all focused around young men and young women in high school, and it's a big decision, especially for young men. It's their responsibility to support themselves and support a family. It's intimidating. There is so much out there that is very valuable to get your perspective on what it's like to have a career in management. And you can take the skills you have and go to any company and apply those skills. It
Yeah.
just happens to be that you're with a pest control company, but a very large company, very successful company. And yeah, I mean, very valuable skills that you have. And so I hope people watch this to the very end. So, but I appreciate all of your time. Any parting words before we call it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of paths to get it done. There's technical routes too, where people get very good at a trade. I'm not saying that everything we've talked about is the one and only way to get it done. But yeah, there's another thing though. Maybe just my closing thoughts is work is work. You gotta. It's typically not something fun you like to do. Very few people, I think, get that special luxury of loving, and they get paid to do a hobby or something that they're passionate and loving. Otherwise, it's work. Someone's paying you to do something you otherwise didn't want to do. And so if you're young, if you're 16, 15, 14, go start working. It doesn't have to be full time. Obviously, you got to get through school and your upbringing. But if you're, 19, 20, 21, you start going to college, you got to start learning how to work. You got a lot of years ahead of you. My closing thought is this. My career, I kept thinking that I wanted to climb to the peak of this mountain and I got to get to this position, or I got to save this much money, or this investment's got to work where it's kind of pays out and it's the easy street out. Right now I'm on the descent. It's easy. I'm at the cush part of my career, and my goal is to get there as fast as possible. And I've changed the way I think just this year, really. And it was, if I'm going to climb mountains, I need to just go build leg muscles. My lungs need to get strong. I need to have good circulation so that I can keep working. Working doesn't end in retirement. Working doesn't end at this position you're in. And I need to just go build the ability to work. And so the earlier you can do that, and the stronger you can make your professional muscles, or your technical muscles, or your trade muscles, if that's what you're building, build them and build them quick, so that it doesn't matter if you're on this mountain, you can be on another mountain, You're just a hiker. You're just a mountain climber. You're just someone who knows how to go and build and grow, and you're strong doing it. And a mountain's not the burden anymore. It's just, are you on the right one and you like being there? So being able to work and not working to the time of ease, but just being able to know and have the strength to be a worker, man, the earlier you can young people listening, just go work and do it well, and work hard. And the man, in the typical scenario in USA, the next 40 years will go a lot easier if you just know how to do it, and you know how to be happy doing it, and stable doing it. So get to
Mhm.
work, do it.
Go to work regardless of how you feel. You don't want to get out of bed, just go to work.
Those
It's
days
not a
will come.
choice. Well, thank you, Steve Helland. You're amazing. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure.